which means paradise. And he had God's presence. God was with him. And that's what paradise means. It has to do with a place of peace and presence. By the way, if you're single, to the ladies, and you're looking for a good man, find a man who's already in paradise. Don't find a man in the wilderness and then try to drag him into paradise. That's exhausting, okay? Adam was already in paradise when Eve was brought to him. Man had a purpose. The Bible said his purpose in chapter 2 and verse 15 was to work it. Man had peace because verse 21 of Genesis chapter 2, he went into a deep sleep. And then he had a partnership. But then man lost his way. Satan came in chapter 3. And man lost his way because man turned from God's word. And by the way, anytime you're in paradise, look for the devil to show up. Anytime there's prosperity and there's blessing, he's going to show up. And so man lost his way. And the question was asked, where are you? And when man lost his way, not just his way back to God, but man lost a way to love and the way to forgive and the way to serve and the way to build a strong family. Men lost the way to be a model and an example to their sons and their daughters. Man lost the way to respond to pain and to failure. Man lost his way. And when you don't know the way to the right place, you'll find yourself in the wrong place. And when you look at the Old Testament, you find God's people in all the wrong places, in bondage. The Jewish people were in Egyptian bondage in Exodus chapter 1. Later on, Babylonian bondage, and later on, bondage to the Assyrians, and then the Greeks, and then the Romans, and then the Medes, and then the Persians. When you lose your way to God, you wind up in bondage. The wilderness, man lost his way. But man not only lost his way physically, but man lost his way and wound up in the wrong places emotionally. Resentment, bitterness, anger, anxiety, revenge, emotionally and physically. And those are emotional pits. David talked about in Psalms 40 that he was in a pit. Joseph was thrown in a pit by some brothers who had lost their way. And see, when you lose your way and can't find your way to God, and you lose your way, it not only hurts the person, but it hurts the people who are connected with you. And all through the Bible, you found David in the pit. By the way, the pit is a dark place. It's a place of brokenness. And you know what? Some people are born in the pit. They're born into broken, dysfunctional families. Here in Houston, all around in this area, people are born into families where drugs are sold, and there's abuse, and there's fighting, there's cursing, and they're calling the police. They're born into that pit. They're born into that pit. Some people accidentally fall into the pit. They stumble and fall into the pit. Some people are pulled into the pit. Some people, like Joseph, are thrown into the pit. And some people, they look at the pit, and the pit looks good, and they jump into the pit. But here's the deal. No matter how you got in the pit, you need a way to get out of the pit. And by the way, that's why we are here, and I get to that at the end. But God put people here to help. Listen, if I'm in a pit, don't shoot me while I'm in the pit. the lostness that's found there where people are in the wrong places. Jesus said, I've come now. And he's talking to a bunch of men who were confused, and they had lost their way. And Jesus is going to tell them, I am the way. In St. John chapter 14, the truth and the life. Now notice what he said. I am the way and the truth. He's saying, listen, man originally lost his way because of a lie. In the book of Genesis, Satan told a lie, man lost his way. Jesus said, I'm going to help you find your way. It's going to be based on the truth. And then he said, I'm the truth and the life. When man lost his way, things died. He died spiritually. His relationship with Miss Eve had some problems because when God said, how did you get in this mess? He said, basically, I was doing good when it was just me and the cows and the horses. But it was this woman you gave me. I'm sure things were tough that night. So I'm sure that marriage struggle, man died. His dreams died. His hopes died. In the next generation, Cain killed his brother Abel. Death, division. And death is not annihilation, it's separation. Lot separated from Abraham. Joseph's brothers were separated from him. The 12 tribes were separated. 10 went north and 2 stayed south. Separation. So Jesus said, when I show you the way, it's going to be based on truth, and it's going to bring back to life the things that you thought were dead and buried in your life. And then he said this in chapter 14 and verse 27. He said, and when you know the way, and here's how I'm going to give it to you, you will get peace. Look at verse 27. He said, peace I leave with you. My peace I give you. I do not give you as the world gives peace. He said, listen, the peace that I give you is not like the world. You don't get this peace from a bottle of alcohol. You don't get this peace from drugs. You don't get this peace from smoking marijuana. You don't get this peace from going from one intimate relationship to another, sleeping with people you don't even know, to numb the pain. He said the peace, see, that kind of peace from the world, it is fragile, it is fake, it's a phony, it will not last. He said the peace that I give you, that comes from me, and I'm going to show you the way to do it. There are 3 levels of peace, and many teachers have talked about this, the 3 levels of peace that I think that God gives us. Spurgeon talked about one level called spiritual peace. That is peace with God. And that's in Romans chapter 5 and verse 1. And this has been put together by people who have studied this. But when you look at this, there are these 3 kinds. And that's a peace with God. And that's an eternal peace. Romans chapter 5. And then there is emotional peace. That is peace with self. That's an inner peace. Philippians chapter 4, Paul calls it